How you doing? Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I know there are other things going at the Capitol today, but I will call this meeting of the Higher Education Committee to order, our first meeting of the 2024 General Assembly session. We have a short agenda today. I want to go first. First welcome everyone. Welcome everyone in the audience. We don't have action items today, so as such, there's not a pure public comment period, but if as we finish the agenda, if anyone has something that they need to raise, time considering, I'll give you the opportunity to do that. So what we're going to do again is welcome everyone, and we're going to have a presentation by Georgia Student Finance. I think President Riley, you're going to do that along with Ms. You've got it, okay? So we'll call her up. After that, you each should have in your packet a copy of the legislation that we had before us. So I'll go around and give each member a moment after this presentation, and after we've finished, if there are questions of President Riley, to give thoughts on legislation, or if you have anything that's burning on your heart about our legislative agenda going forward. With that, Commissioner Riley, or President Riley, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me here today to give comments on the Georgia College Completion Grant. As you will recall, the first year of the program was FY 2023, and part of the legislation that created this program in 2022, House Bill 1435, required Student Finance Commission to prepare an annual report so that the General Assembly could evaluate the impact of the program. So I'm going to first give you a very quick overview, and then I'll walk you through some of the details and the data that we reviewed and compiled and included in the completion grant report. Members of the committee have a copy of the report in front of them, and we have published this report on our Georgia Student Finance Commission website, and at the end of my presentation there'll be a IP address, an address for folks to go and get their own copy downloaded. So again, the grant was created in 2022, and this FY 2023 was the first year of operation of the program. $10 million was appropriated by the General Assembly to administer and allocate out to the participating institutions for award to eligible students. And of that $10 million, $7.26 million was awarded in FY 2023. Those 6,891 awards were made to just over 6,000 recipients, and the unutilized funds of about $2.75 million are carrying forward to be allocated in FY 2024 to the institutions on top of the $10 million appropriation that was included in the FY 2024 budget. So just over $12.7 million is available and has been allocated to the institutions in this current fiscal year. As you may recall, the maximum lifetime award for a student to receive completion grant funds is $2,500, and the student must be at least 80% completed with the credential that they are pursuing to be eligible for the award. This slide that we're showing is the utilization by sector, and as you can see from the screen, just under 86% was utilized by the privates from the allocations that they were offered. Just over 50, or just close to 58% was utilized by the technical college system institutions, and about 74% for the USG. Some reasons for that. First off, it was a program that we spun up fairly quickly to be available for the fall semester of 2020. Get my years right, of 2022. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And many of the institutions told us that they had already calculated the financial aid packages for students. So the first semester, that fall semester, the award rate was significantly less than the spring semester. So that was a lot of the information that we received from the institutions on why they weren't able to utilize 100% of their allocation. And I'll talk a little bit more about other reasons as well later on. The total of 7.2 million that was awarded, you can see the breakdown in dollars that USG was allocated the bulk of the 10 million, and they used 5.6 in total in 23, and then you can see that TCSG 736,000 and privates just under 900,000. A little bit of information about activity in the current fiscal year as in comparison, and as I spoke about the late rollout in FY23. As of January 8th of 2023, after that first semester, 1.7 million of completion grants were awarded. As of January 8th this year, we're at 3.7 already. And the post-secondary institutions have the ability to make awards for this current spring semester and also the summer semester out of the FY 2024 allocation. So we see that there will likely be a significantly greater utilization when we true up the fiscal year dollars after all of the awards are made for the summer semester this coming year. The post-secondaries have until February 23rd to submit invoices for the fall semester, so this 3.7 million that I just quoted isn't all inclusive of what might have been allocated for fall. And we have also instituted an opportunity if a post-secondary institution chooses not to use all of their allocation, they can let student finance know that they're willing to forfeit a portion of their allocation. We put it back into the pot, and if institutions tell us that they have more students that are eligible for award, we can authorize that additional allocation to them in early March, with the goal of not leaving any money on the table, if at all possible, if an institution doesn't feel that they will be able to award all of their allocation. Some post-secondaries have already told us that they'd like more this year, so we've seen a significant utilization for some institutions. Others have already told us that they have not yet awarded, but they intend to, and we are continuously in communication reminding them that we don't want them to miss the opportunity to provide these funds for their students. So we will be communicating fairly heavily in the next 6 weeks to make sure that if they haven't already determined that they have full ability to utilize, that they will provide it back to us so that we can offer it to other institutions. We asked the institutions to give us some idea of the Pell Grant recipients that also received completion grants. So these numbers were provided back to us from the institutions. And so you can see that it's for USG, it's about 50-50, just a little over 50% are Pell eligible, a little bit less for TCSG, and I'll talk about that in just a second, and a little bit more for the privates of Pell eligibility for those students that were offered these awards. The technical college system, we see a lower amount, primarily because many of the students that could potentially be eligible for completion grants are pursuing a certificate or a diploma, and Pell Grants aren't available for pursuing those credentials, so many of the students don't even apply or don't complete a FAFSA to determine Pell eligibility because they aren't intending to utilize it. So that's why we see a little bit lower amount for this metric when we're looking at the utilization and the awards as they were made in FY 2023. Part-time or full-time, again, this is fairly self-explanatory. At USG, it's about 50-50 of the students that receive grants are going part-time or full-time. Significantly more at TCSG are going part-time, and lower for the private award recipients. I may have skipped over one. I did. Completion grant recipients also received other sources of financial aid, and so this slide indicates some of the other types of financial aid that they were able to avail themselves of. This slide is reflective of a student receiving a completion grant and another form of financial aid at any time while they were pursuing higher education credentials. We have another slide that's included in the report that shows concurrent receipt of financial aid other than completion grant, and that detail is in the report. But I thought it was important to see that many of these students are receiving other forms of aid, but still had a financial gap to get them across the finish line. Completion credentials. As you can see, and I'm sorry, I'm going back. Of all of the award recipients, 58% actually attained the credential in FY 2023. And you can see by the breakdown on the bar on the right that the predominant credential was a bachelor's degree, and less for the associate's diplomas and certificates of that 58 that earned a credential. And a breakdown of the credentials earned by sector. You can see at USG, most of the credentials earned were a bachelor's degree. TCSG had a fairly even breakdown between associate's diplomas and certificates by using the completion grant, and in the private sector predominantly as well, a bachelor's credential. We surveyed the post-secondary institutions to ask them what challenges they might have incurred in administering the completion grant. And this chart that you can see speaks to some of the challenges, the most predominant ones. On the left side, the concern expressed by the post-secondaries was insufficient number of students that met all of the eligibility criteria. And primarily this was the challenge due to the threshold of 80% completion. In particular, the technical college system had a very great challenge with meeting that 80% threshold. A certificate or a diploma program might only be 1 or 2 semesters long. And if you only are taking 2 semesters, you're only 50% of the way halfway through when you're seeking a completion grant for the second semester. So that threshold was significantly too high for so many of their students to be eligible. In other cases, the 80% was problematic if a student might only have been 75% of the way and couldn't be considered for a completion grant. So that we heard quite a bit of concern expressed from all sectors of the post-secondary institutions in the state. The other concern was the administration challenges that the post-secondary institutions experience, and they were concerned that they just didn't have the technology or the time and the ability to quickly identify students in the first year of operations. We have heard anecdotally that they are feeling more comfortable about being able to be more proficient in this current year, primarily due to the fact that they've had the runway to be able to consider the completion grant when they are looking at an annual financial aid package for a student that is entering the home stretch of their studies in higher education. But we did hear from many of the institutions that they felt that they could have still given out more awards if they'd had additional dollars. So we do see that there has been quite a bit of an appetite for the program, and as I said earlier, quite a significant increase in utilization in FY 2024. And that, Mr. Chairman, is an overview of the major findings that are included in the report. As I mentioned, if folks that want to pull down a copy of their own, the screen is now showing the address. We'd be happy to make sure that anybody that has any difficulty in navigating their way, we will make sure that a copy is provided to them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. At your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Riley. Number 27, is that Chairman Carpenter?
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Riley, I appreciate you very much for what you do. I just wanted to go over something real quick, just to wrap my head around it. We have, I'm looking at you may have a hard time finding it, but it's the pie chart with the no credential earned, 5842.
Right. Yes, sir.
Could you clarify that one more time for me? I apologize. I have ADD and I don't focus too well, especially until I drink this coffee.
Well, thank you for letting me clarify. The pie chart of all of the recipients, 58% completed their education in FY 2023 and earned their credential. Those that did not weren't done. They may have had another semester to go.
Okay, so that's a moving target. So the 42% still have an opportunity. They didn't just fold shop and say, thanks for the grant, see ya, I'm out of here.
Exactly.
Okay,
thank you for letting me clarify that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you so much. This is helpful and feels good to see the fruits of what we put forward a couple of years ago. I seem to remember when we debated this bill initially, we did talk about perhaps reducing to 75% completion as a possibility for folks to qualify for the grant. And it sounded like anecdotally you believed that there might have been more opportunity for more students if we had gone to that 3/4 of the way through their credential than 80%. If we're going to revisit this in a few years when we have more data, is your sense that perhaps we would be better off, again, just because we're talking about whole semesters and whole hours that the students are doing, that 75% may actually open up the door for more students to take advantage?
Thank you for that question. Based on the survey and the information that was fed back to us from the post-secondary institutions that participated, they absolutely believe that thresholds need to be revisited. Whether it's 75% or less for 4-year bachelor's degrees, but certainly something different for a shorter credential attainment. Because as I use that example, if you have 2 semesters to receive a certificate and you need something to get over the finish line, but you're only 50% of the way, you would be prohibited from being able to benefit from this program. I think there's a number of folks here in the audience today. I don't know if the chairman will ask for them to weigh in, but I think there's a lot of representatives of the post-secondaries that could weigh in on that view as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shane. To expound on that, Representative Holland, if you'll recall, in House Bill 249, we actually passed out of the committee, passed out of the House, passed out of the Senate, and it found its way not across the finish line because of it basically picked up something in the Senate. And at that point, we were going from 80 to 70, and I believe to 49. Am I right?
Mr. Chairman, it was 45%.
45% for a less than 2 years degree. So we will get an opportunity. I've had discussions with the governor's office and with our colleagues across the hall about continuing to try to right size that this year. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Riley, for your presentation. My question, I have 2. The first question is on one of the very early slides, the FY23 utilization, where it shows that TCSG used significantly less. I'm just wondering, is that number smaller because TCSG tends to cost less, so the amount that you need to award is less, or was it less actual applicants?
Thank you for that question. It really ties back to the threshold concern that was expressed by TCSG. The fact that most of their awards, their credentials, are 2 years or less, and an 80% completion would put you all the way into the home stretch, and so eligibility really didn't apply. So that has really was a challenging factor for finding eligible students that were at least 80%. And so that's why their utilization was significantly lower.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, you mentioned that the schools need to, or the institutions have to report to you all by February 23rd about what their needs are. Is that for, so I think in semesters, because I'm a professor, is that for what they need for spring 2024, or is that for what they need for summer and fall of 2024?
Thank you for the question. I'll clarify. The schools have to invoice us by February 23rd for any awards they made for the fall semester.
Okay.
That is a deadline to be reimbursed for a completion grant that they awarded to a student.
Okay.
Also in February and at the beginning of March, we have asked the schools to tell us if they're going to utilize all of their current year allocation. And if not, if they would like to forfeit a portion of that allocation so that we could use that to give to a different post-secondary institution that has additional demand.
So can I ask a follow-up? So is there a second deadline, like later this year, to invoice for summer?
Absolutely.
And then for fall?
Absolutely.
Okay. Or, yeah, I guess for spring and summer.
Yes, the spring semester deadline is in June, and sometime in late July for the summer semester. And that's why we will true up after that to determine how much of the 12.4 million is actually utilized for FY 2024.
Thank you.
And to be clear, President Riley, those are accounting dates. The students are, or the recipients would have the money awarded to them and would be on about their education. Those are just accounting dates between you and the various colleges, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, but that helps us understand whether there might be additional
Absolutely.
funds for additional awards.
Yeah, because this is a true statement. It has to come somewhere. If a school gets past the 23rd, I think you said,
Correct.
and they don't invoice you, it's just they're being our partner and they're funding that out of their own money.
That is correct.
Representative Glaze.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate Dr. Riley. I just wanted to you have actually answered most of it in reference to the significant high percentage for our kids who might have a 2-semester certificate program. When we revisit that, it also stated in the survey that there might be a need for additional staff or technology to assist. It was in your grant survey responses. How will we try to increase staff so that there is the need that we have in the colleges, that we're actually taking our students into action so that we can take care of their needs?
Well, thank you for that question. I think posing that question will help our partners in post-secondary ensure that they convey that concern to you and that consideration can be made to make sure that they have adequate resources.
And also, I saw in the first or the second slide where it said there were additional resources that were used, financial aid, and then in there was the Hope GED program or Hope Grant was only 1% utilized as additional financial aid. Is there any robust work that we could do for those students in that particular category to give them additional assistance to utilize this program and get them into those high demand careers and making sure that we build up that demand that we need to work in our new EV and manufacturing companies?
Thank you so much for that question, Representative. Actually, the Hope GED grant program has terminated.
Okay,
So that's why
it's
that number
so
is
low.
so very low,
Okay.
because it's no longer offered. Technical college system has gone into a different program to offer high school equivalency grants, and that's not reflected on this slide.
Okay, that's why it was so low. Thank you.
I want to follow up there, and this is just the fiscal conservative to me, if you're with the institutions out there. I can't speak for each member of this committee, but we need to get faster, leaner, and meaner and apply this. This $10 million is meant to go to the students, not additional administrative overhead. Let's work with President Riley to get more efficient about finding students as opposed to looking to this group to fund more positions. That's just my position on that. I think we're a $10 million program. We need to keep the money, going to the students, and certainly work to streamline the program. I mean, that was the first year. We should get much better at it the second year, and hopefully better the third as we reach that. Representative Jackson. I just don't want to get ahead of our appropriations committee and think that this group's advocating additional head count in our university system or TCSG. Representative Jackson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. At first, the black and white, I was having a little difficulty because of my eyes, but when I went to this other document, basically, the slides are the same, so thank you very much for that. Do you have a breakdown on the schools, by school, the number of students that were serviced? And if possible, can we get that so we can see where there is a need for us to kind of beef up and talk within the administration to get more and more students involved?
Thank you, Representative Jackson. It's the back pages of your report.
Oh, it is on there.
It is. We've got a
Thank
breakdown
you.
by every post-secondary
Thank
institution.
you, I didn't see that.
To clarify,
Yeah, that's the one. I have one hand up here, y'all. I can't. So,
and again, those are statistics for FY
thank
'23.
you. I appreciate that.
President Riley, thank you for being here. Would you, for the benefit of us, of those of us who are newer, would you talk about the origin of the program, and also, given the newness of the program and with the benefit of hindsight, if you were redesigning it today, is there anything else? You talked about 80% versus 75%. You talked about TCSG and the certificate programs. Anything else that you would sort of, if you were starting over from scratch, you would change?
I thank you very much for that question, but I'm going to defer to your chairman who authored the bill and probably can speak more eloquently than I can.
So I take it the secretary doesn't like the program line?
Loves
No.
Loves the program, Mr. Chairman. My favorite
gentlemen,
program
look,
and all.
we came up with this idea as a group here in higher ed. It was, it was my name, one of many on the bill. Quite frankly, we thought 80%, that meant you were in your final year of a 4-year program. And, with respect to all our partners in the room, I didn't think about a 2-year program. And nobody said anything about, oh, gee, if you're in the final leg of a 2-year program, that means you're in the last semester of 75%. So it's something that we started and we tried to learn from last year, and we tried to make those changes while you were here, Representative, and we found some baggage, on the bill, and we didn't get our way through, and that's why we'll work at it again. But we also, if you recall, we sunsetted in case we weren't getting the data we wanted, that it would go away. But it's an iterative thing. We didn't have all of. We're going to improve. I mean, one of the things we did last year is we suggested that we add $1,000 as permissive to add to it. That we have to talk about that number. So we just want to try to get better. And this is not the only answer. There's some other things that are being kicked around that we may find this year about providing additional funds to help people that are that have part of a degree, if you will, that have been out of school for a minute, and try to get them to go back to school. So that's a great question. And I should pause here a second. And again, we had our names on the bill, the number of us that did it. President Lynn Riley and the Georgia Student Finance did a ton of work with us to figure out how to do it and your rules. So this is something, and I think you work with many of the presidents and TCSG and the university system in order to try to make this seamless. So we'll continue to try to improve on that. We're making our second lap around the sun, going back to Chairman Casey Carpenter. Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. I think when she pointed us to the back page, it kind of answered my question. But I would say kudos to the universities that rolled their sleeves up and got it done. If you look through the list, you can see you had some people you had to reallocate funds to because they were so proactive at getting funds down to the institutions that did not. Obviously, I have one in my district that didn't quite get the ball rolling like they should. So we'll have conversations to make sure everybody knows what's out there. But it's money that we allocate. We want to use it. And I'm in the stance of use it or lose it. So if you don't want it, that's fine. But let's allocate funds to people that are making use of it. So as much as I hate to say that, thank you.
Well, are you from to Dalton State? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I to the event. To that end, I want to. I haven't looked at. They may have been one of the folks that had used a lesser percentage, but to their credit, Dalton State, I believe, and I don't know if somebody is here from Dalton State. It's my belief that their graduates graduate with lower average student debt than any of our university systems. So it's possible there just wasn't as great a need on across the student basis. But I take your point. It's probably a combination of both.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. They definitely do a great job providing a value education to their students, but you know, there's a lot of kids over there in need, so.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr. Clark, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to actually follow up on something that we talked about when we talked about making sure that the funds are going to the students. I 100% agree, but I am curious at these schools, who is actually implementing this program? What office is implementing? What staff is doing the dirty work, like hands in the dirt work?
Thank you very much for that question. It's the Office of Financial Aid at each of the institutions. We work closely with them, but this program was designed to give them as much latitude as possible for them to identify the students that were truly at risk of not completing their credential. We are going to continue to receive data from the post-secondary so that we can understand if our goals were met in ensuring that the awards were most appropriately made, and whether that in some cases the determining or the matrix that they use to determine best eligibility could be replicated at other institutions. So we're looking for best practices, and we'll be collecting that information over time to be able to provide that to the committee as well.
Can I just ask a very quick follow-up? So is this student-led or office-led? So I'm a student, I'm struggling. Do I go in and fill out an application and then they determine if I'm eligible? Or does the school say, you seem like you might be struggling, you need a little help here, here's an opportunity for you?
Thank you for that question as well. It's a combination based on what we've been told by the post-secondaries. They look at students that have a balance due when it's drop ad day, and they will make good judgments and have those conversations with the students. That's what they've anecdotally shared with us. Other students will come and specifically ask, but we will absolutely appreciate, and I'm sure the post-secondaries would appreciate any advocacy from members of the General Assembly on communicating as best as possible that this financial tool is available for those that truly need to get over the finish line and get out into the workforce.
Thank you.
We have a couple more questions, but let me ask one. I think what you said there were 6,000 or so awards to, or 6,100 awards to 6,000 people. I guess a couple of the awards could have been twice, as long as they were under the $2,500.
Correct. Some students
where
receive more than one.
And this is just me try to grab partial data and multiply it together. Am I to think then of that 6,000 awards or 6,100 awards to 6,000 students, am I to assume that about 3,600 or 3,500 of those got a credential or a degree? I mean, that's 58% of the 6,000. Would that be?
That's a fair estimate. I can
Okay.
get you exact numbers.
No, that's fine. But that would be how those numbers would kind of go together. Because, I mean, that gets us an idea of how many people might not have finished, if not but for this. And then when you talk about 3,500 people that now have their certificate or have a degree and can be earners, as opposed to just almost there but not quite, and not being able to earn based on having that credential or degree, whether or not they had student loans or not, or other financial obligations created by a partial education. That's I mean, there's 11 million people in Georgia. That's only 3,000, but that moves the needle for those 3,000 people. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would say that all 6,000 are benefiting. I wouldn't
Well,
discount that. It may be a little bit longer before they
no,
complete.
I understand that, but I'm just saying we helped 3,000. If I'm reading this correct, somewhere around 3,500 did cross the finish line.
In FY 23,
there's something
right.
to be celebrated for that. Representative Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Riley, thank you. I was asking just clarification on why Georgia Southern forfeited so much. Is it because of the threshold? And did they just give it to Georgia State? Or allocate it?
I thank you for the question. I would have to go back and look at some of the specific detail that was provided back to us from Georgia Southern, but we did ask that on our survey, what was the reason and why. But each would be a unique reason, so I would hesitate to give you an off-the-cuff answer, but I can certainly follow up.
Yes, I'm looking at the monies that was not used. Are we trying to encourage the schools that are not maxing out in some of the areas to maybe to reevaluate what they're doing and getting more and more students to apply? And I'm saying that because you hear about the students that have to drop out of school for lack of $500, $600, and what have you. And surely, you know, some of that money could be used. So I don't know, do we have a program where someone on your staff or something can encourage them? And my reason for saying that, because I know how we get letters from our institution saying we have a student that needs $500 or $1,000, and here are funds that may be available.
Thank you for that question, Representative. Because it was the first year and there were some challenges with the rollout in that first semester, it did tend to have some cases where they weren't able to use all the funds. Good news is this money doesn't evaporate. We were able to roll it over and allow it for utilization this current fiscal year. And we are in communications heavily right now, between now and the end of February, to encourage them to be strategic about using all of their allocation in FY24 now that they've had a longer runway. And also, if they don't believe they can, to be able to forfeit it back to the pot, if you will, so it can be used in this fiscal year by another institution.
Okay, gotcha.
I was just looking at some of the HBCUs, and the majority of them did not utilize the funding at all. Is that just an anomaly, or is there something that we need to be specific to make sure that they're more cognizant about this money being available? That's strange to see that.
Thank you for the question. We did not see any specific trends, nor did we receive any information that was, particularly challenging to any type of institution. The major challenge we heard was the threshold, that the 80% was very problematic to be able to find students that were past that line in their credential attainment, most predominantly in TCSG, but also that was problematic in the four-year colleges as well. I would suggest that maybe a conversation with the administration at these institutions, perhaps sooner rather than later, so that if there's any impediments that we might be able to assist them with, that, again, they have ability to award for this current spring semester as well as the summer semester. So any assistance that Student Finance can provide to make sure that they utilize all of their allocation in FY 2024, we'd be greatly appreciative.
Yeah, I see that Albany State did utilize theirs very well, but other HBCUs, there's no interaction in this at all.
And it could be the change of personnel and, something plays into this. That's why I looked at that, I said, ooh.
We certainly did hear that there was some staffing challenges at an institution or two. I don't have the specifics, but that was reported back to us. And again, certainly we want to be as helpful as we can, but it is the school driven on making those determinations on the eligibility of the students that are attending.
I think the committee should take away, for the schools in our respective areas, that President Riley's group at Georgia Student Finance is a great resource, and it's, sometimes it's there. I mean, if there's financial planning being done for these students, this should be part of it. This should be one of the materials that goes in there. I don't see any further questions. Or does anyone have any further questions of President Riley? Let me real quickly. The posture on this is I'm having a bill redrafted to address this. And continue to work with our colleagues in the Senate and the governor's office, and we'll try to get that up and done straight away. And we'll talk a little bit more about the legislation on that. So if the committee has no further questions on the report, we'll move on in our agenda. Don't go forward, President Riley. We might need you for a couple of things. What I want to do while I have the floor is mention a couple things. Again, to thank our subcommittee chairs, Representative Chairman Wiedauer and Chairman Fleming for the work they did this summer, and to also just spread upon the audience so that you won't be surprised. In the next day or so, I will drop a bill that seeks to clean up the language on approved school, where we're trying to address the things of TEG. We do that when we have in here the section in code in 20-3-411, the definition. It's just so when you see it, it will be a skeleton bill, if you will. It will say we're changing these definitions, and it will be the same definitions you see in the code. Oftentimes people see that and they wonder what the author is up to. So I'm telling you today what I'm up to. Our goal is to simplify exactly what is in code today. So anybody that would qualify under TEG, our goal is to change the language to make it more readable for everyone. If you are familiar with this code, you know to what I am referring. It has been added to and taken away from for probably about 15 years, and it's hard. It's got a lot of ands and ors and but-fors, and so Michael Walker and Legislative Council is going to try to make that simple. I just wanted to lay that out for everybody, because when people see a bill come in and it's sort of a straw man bill, they immediately think mischief is about to abound. That is not the case, but we're going to go ahead and get a bill in. Michael is really efficient. He may have a first take at what that language needs to look like in the original bill, but what I'm going to need you all to do that have interest in that is help us vet the language, because the idea is to have it mean exactly what it does today, but be more readable. Does that make sense? Nobody's trying to sneak up on anybody. Nobody's trying to put anybody else in or out. I know there will be some discussions. We had it last year, and we'll have again about people being added to those programs. That'll be for a later time, but we're just trying to make the language more readable so that the average person can understand it, and you don't have to pay a lawyer to do that. So that'll be one of the things coming to. With that, I want to go to the committee. You should also have had in your packet a list of the bills that we had, the status that they were in when we left. I want to ask everyone before we meet again to look forward to that. If there's something that's near and dear to your heart that you wish to have us look at as a committee, if you would let us know your interest in. We have a number of things that we didn't get to last year, some that got out of this committee and didn't make it out of rules, so they're back to us, that would have to have a change because of the date and then move forward. So we'll be trying to address some of those things early on. Does anyone, I'll go around the room, if you just have anything that's on your mind this year that's not in that you want to speak about. If you're inclined, I'll just start with Representative Chairman Carpenter there, and we'll come around. If you don't have anything right now, that's fine, but we have a couple more minutes and before we get to our 3 o'clock hour. Chairman Carpenter.
Yes, sir. As I look over that Excel spreadsheet of bills that carried over from last year, obviously House Bill 131 is near and dear to my heart, so I look forward to having those conversations as we move through the process and hopefully have some success.
Did you have anything? Just coming around the corner here.
Well, I think there is a bill that was dropped by Phil Aleo, Representative 281. I don't think there got to be a study committee, but I know he was looking into seeing if there was opportunities to do need-based K through need-based financial aid that could come to a student if they were victims of crimes, and so if there's a possibility, I think there's 2 bills that talk about folks who might have been victims of crime, and looking to see if there were need-based reasons to assess those students when they come into universities.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about is, the monies that are awarded through our system is usually based on the number of students and enrollment and what have you. And I wish we could find some way, because as I look at what happened on last year, if a school did not meet an enrollment, monies were taken from the budget, which means that the money will come out of this year's budget, and schools are not going to be able to do some of the things that they need to do. I wish we could have some monies available through higher education, not necessarily through the Board of Regents, that can be awarded to schools that are in need of additional funding in order to help the students that are there or the students that they want to recruit, and those and funds that can help them to stay there, and that the majors that they're interested in can be funded, not by enrollment, but by the needs that are out there for various majors. That's something that I am very concerned about.
Okay, we'll talk to the chancellor's office on that. I would be remiss if I didn't admit that we have to work with them, because there is, still remains a constitutional separation between
Right.
directly the legislature, but I understand that. And we had, one of our off-session committees talked at least at a very high level about funding for me, and I know this chancellor is very interested in continuing to meet the needs of Georgia students, both traditional and non-traditional. So we'll do that.
Thank you.
Secretary of this committee, Eric Clark, what are you, 24 over there, sir? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, with regard to specific bills, nothing specific at this time. I did have a great conversation, a meeting with President Mike Shannon from University of North Georgia last week, and we touched a great deal on some things that Chairman Fleming and you touched on a lot this summer too, which is getting the word out, and specifically talking about older Georgians, people, empty nesters, for example, and bringing them back into the workforce in different ways we can get the word out of the great programs and things that are available, certificate programs, other things, for those people a little bit older who are, with inflation being what it is, and money not going as far as it used to, and the fact that we're living to be 90 and 95 and 100 years old, money's going to have to go a lot longer, and so exploring ways to bring our older Georgians back into the workforce, possibly.
Thank you, Representative. We resemble that remark, do we not? Yes, sir. Well, you said it. Representative Fleming.
I'm good, Chairman.
All right, you get Chairman Dempsey. Do you have anything you want to add at this time, or?
Well, I don't see it on the list, but I know we had a bill that went over to the Senate and came back and didn't come out on the final night on our side. So
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't be on this list because it's not in our committee. It's still up in the House floor. But I understand
that's where
that
it
you have an interest in, and that's what we're trying to do with that language that I mentioned
Right.
earlier. Is
Right.
we'll get that set into a readable form, and then we'll have our discussions on adding or modifying any of that language. No, fair enough. That's
Absolutely.
why
Look forward to that. Thank
that's
you.
why it's not on the list. It's out of the rest of this committee.
Okay.
Dr. Clark, I'm just going in order. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that sports betting is a very hot button issue, but I'm actually really curious about the section of HB 380 that focuses on the lottery reserves, and wanting to make sure that we continue that conversation so that we are actually using the lottery funds to get people into higher education.
Thank you. Fair enough. Yes, ma'am. Representative Orange, do you have anything? No, that's fine. You usually, yes. Go ahead. Representative Holland, do you have anything you want to?
Sure. I'd like to echo Chairman Carpenter's. I would like to see us get back to HB 131. And in the same vein, HB 427, the ban the box. Those of us who are at Eggs and Issues this morning heard a lot about workforce development, and this just seemed like two opportunities where we can remove some barrier for folks to get into our schools.
Thank you. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman
And,
Dickey's been quiet down there today. Y'all sit back and relax. It may be a minute here. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd just like to give the committee HB 605, which is sitting in our committee from last year, our REACH scholarship bill. I thank the committee and the chairman for support of that last year, where we added human trafficking to that, and I hope many of you had a chance to go to a REACH signing this fall. Very successful program. I thank President Riley for her work in administering that program. And I've been working with her and the governor's office on a bill to be bringing shortly to this committee to try to make that program more sustainable long-term, and also relieve our counties of a little bit. So good bill. You'll be seeing it in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Chairman Dickey. Well, that's what we have before us. I want to go back. I thought she had left earlier, but I'm going to ask Ms. Bambata to stand up. Nyla is with our office as an intern this year. She is from, do you mind me telling them where you're from? She's from California. She came all the way to Georgia, and she loves it here. Student at Clark Atlanta, and we're going to make her Southern yet. I'm going to have her talking like me and saying y'all before the end of the session. She has been a blessing to our office already this year, and we thank you. She's who helps us get our packets together, along with Molly Aziz. And I'm terrible about. I should have introduced all of these folks at the beginning of the minutes, but I didn't see her here, and I wanted to wait to do that. And Michael Walker will support us as our legislative counsel. He is with us online today from the office, so we didn't have any business with votes and so forth. So he is multitasking with us over there. So that's what our committee. Of course, Brittany Valentine is still holding our office together for our office and banks and banking, and we really appreciate the work she does. With that concludes the business I have before the committee. We have a couple of minutes. Does anyone have anything they would like to share for the good of the order? Anyone? It's perfectly fine to complain about the officials in the SEC championship game if you'd like. If not, I want to sincerely thank everybody for their help in the off season and the engagement they had with our two working groups, working committees. Thank both of those chairmen. I know Mark's here. I see Ashley with the Regent's office. We want to engage with both of you all on some of this legislation that's come forward. This is the second year of our biennium. Some of these things need to be worked on, and we need to come to try to come to an agreement and move Georgia forward. And give people opportunities for more, and can continue to focus on applying our human capital and treasure of the state to the betterment of those that are seeking jobs. So we're really going to count on you guys. You've been a great resource to this committee for years before I came here, and we count on you doing it again this year. So with that, we will adjourn without objection if there's nothing further. We will not plan to meet next Wednesday. Next Wednesday is budget week. There's one thing you will learn if you haven't done so already here is don't get between any business and the budget when you're doing. That's the one thing constitutionally we're required to do. So we will not meet next week. Although if anyone has legislation they would like to talk about, I will be here all week. As will the other officers in the committee. So I'm really looking to engage each and every member and look forward to engaging all of you that have an interest in that section 20-3-411 that we're going to redefine to make, help us make sure that we're doing that correctly. So if there's nothing further, any further business, we'll stand adjourned without objection. I see none. We are adjourned without objection.